Welcome to the LaunchPreneur experience. My name is Fernanda Furman, your host, and today we are talking to Charlese Latham, and known as the girl at the yellow desk. And that's how I met Charlese. Welcome, Charlese.
Thanks, Fernanda. I'm so excited to be on your summit. This is our first time on a summit together, and so happy to be here.
Oh, thank you. So Charlese is actually a copywriter and a content creator for launches and summits. And I love her tagline. She writes things that sells. We all need words that sells because not all of us have that gift. So Charlese actually is somebody that I don't know, we're due for a coffee for a while. We live very close by, but we haven't met in person yet, but we will. So I'm very excited to have you here, Charlese. And can you tell the audience a little bit about you, what you do?
Thanks. What a lovely introduction. And you know what? You live by wine country, so maybe we should skip the coffee and just have wine.
Got me.
Okay, so I started off in an interesting way in this industry. I started off, actually, I was a hairstylist for over 20 years, and I had an emergency back surgery almost exactly 3 years ago that had me thinking about how can I still help people feel beautiful, feel good? How can I still empower, especially women, to take control of their lives? But instead of making them look good, how can I make them feel good or do good? And so while I was coming up with a new plan and looking at my strengths, I realized I was always a writer. I was always marketing my business and my salon I owned. I was also an educator, and my niche found me after approaching a lot of women online, seeing what was going on in the online coaching world. Just made so much sense that I could offer my support to help them write social media posts, write emails. And I have had the privilege of working with women being thrown into launches, which I didn't know what a summit was or a launch or any of that, being thrown right into the deep end and learning how to use those words that I know how to craft that create feeling, and then creating that feeling all the way to wanting to sell something. So that's how I ended up here. Kind of started as a VA because I didn't know what I was going to call myself, but quickly realized after taking quite a few lessons in copywriting as well and investing in myself, writing is where it's at for me.
Absolutely. And that's a gift. Not everybody has the gift of writing. I can stare at a blank paper and just write my name. It's like I'm just telling the truth here. I am, even in Portuguese, right? For me, it's hard to put the words in. It's easy for me to talk. And when I want to write something, I usually talk, then I get it on paper. And I'm very excited because Charlese is going to talk about the power of copy for social media. And since she has worked in the back end with launches before, she has an idea. She has like a lot of experience with not only how to sell in words, but how to attract with words. And my first question, Charlese, is how far in advance do we need to start posting when you have an event, a summit, or a launch? How far in advance do we need to start posting on our social media, and what kind of posts should we have?
That is I think that's the money question. That's the one I get asked all the time, but I do have the answer to it. Now, first of all, I'm going to give an answer that maybe a lot of people aren't going to like, which is it depends on what you're launching. But generally speaking, we give the rule that it also depends on how many people are on your list, how many people are following you, and how many leads you need to get. So if you start 6 to 8 weeks in advance with posting what we call seeding or nurture content that hints at what you're going to be launching, you can start also getting people into your launch funnel or your sales funnel using posts, again, 6 to 8 weeks in advance with your freebie. So, I say that if you start a good 2 weeks or 2 months in advance, you get your freebie out into Facebook groups out there in the world and really build up your list. And if you work hard, you can build up your list I got 1,000 people just last month, right before my big launch. So if you have great content and you're out there, and I spent about a solid month getting over 1,000 new people on my email list. So that gives you enough time to get people into your list and then So that's what the first initial post should be. So you should have a freebie or some kind of offer to get people to join your mailing list, or get into your Facebook group or get into your Instagram following. You should have something like that that relates exactly to what you're going to be selling. So whatever your program is, if you're hosting a summit, if whatever you're doing, what you give for free should lead to that. And then from there, it makes sense that your email nurture sequence for welcoming them into your email list, or the next few posts that you do for the next month or two, start off with more information about building your authority. So you should be talking about who you are, what you've done, some of the successes you've had, share testimonials. Those first few weeks should be giving them a lot of value, but also proving that you know what you're talking about, all at the same time, in a very authentic way, by the way, which isn't always easy, but we don't want to sound salesy. Then after those first few weeks, our posts, emails, all of that content switches over to a lot more about what's coming down the line. Maybe starting a wait list, what's going to be included, sneak peeks and teasers until that cart opens.
Oh, I love. So the waiting list is actually the way you are positioning it before even your start. So that way you already have a list of potential buyers and not just after. Because usually a waiting list comes like, okay, awesome. We're going to be launching again. Get in a waiting list so you can be notified when we do that again. But in your case, what you're saying, you have that before, so that you already build that kind of anticipation as you are launching, getting ready for launch.
I'm glad you picked up on that. You're so right. There are two types of wait lists, but what I learn and what I honestly teach my clients is, if we get that wait list getting going about 2 weeks or so, maybe even a little bit more than that, 3 weeks before the cart opens for whatever program they're going to be selling, that's a warm to a hot lead. And sometimes you can even charge at that point, either a deposit or for the full program. So the wait list can start being sold to faster than the general public. So you can start even bringing in money and sell before you start selling, which is always an ego boost, which always feels great to have money. And it helps offset some of those costs for, you do have to invest in things. People invest in me as a copywriter. People invest in support for their whatever vehicle they're using for their launch or their summit. So, getting some money right off the top is a great thing too.
Yes, absolutely. Now, one thing that I'm thinking about the customer journey. So you're bringing them, you're creating the engagement posts in your group to build authority, to build trust, to show the testimonials from your clients. Then you go out, you bring them with a lead magnet, because now when they come to your world, they see who you are right there. So they don't come to an empty world. It's like, who is this person? There's already something. It's like inviting somebody, the first person that gets into the party, right? Then it's like, there's nobody here. So actually what you're doing is you're like, let me have everybody waiting at the door. Then when I open the door, everybody comes in and it looks like this is an awesome party. So then once they come in with the lead magnet, then you're continue to nurture them. And then in this case, we're talking about a soft launch. We're not talking about a live launch, which is a 5-day challenge, is a totally different strategy. And that's why you said it depends, right? And people don't like to hear it depends. So for this kind of launch, the strategy is, and then you come back, and then that's when you start nurturing them about that offer. And then you put them in the waiting list. And if they want to hold for this price, which is, let's say you're selling your program for $1,000, then it could be like, okay, if you buy while we're waiting, then it's going to be $700, or you get a one-on-one strategy. So you kind of give them something, or you put $100 down just to secure your spot. And now when it opens, you already know that you have so many pre-sold spots, which is amazing to go to launch with that feeling.
Absolutely. And so hopefully as we're talking about this, your brain is turning, because now you can see what posts you should be making. So your posts should be join the wait list. And then here's what you get if you join the wait list, a secret bonus that you only find out about when you get into the wait list, why you should join the wait list. And then for those people, they go on their own, like maybe email journey. But for everyone else, you can say, oh, the wait list is closed. Those bonuses have gone away. And now you've created, you always want to create a little bit of scarcity, a little bit of pressure, because, if your cart's going to be open on that soft launch for just a short amount of time, that's a good thing, because we don't want people thinking they can buy it tomorrow, next week, and it turns into never. So we do a little bit of pressure, not to upset them or hurt them, but to definitely say, we need you to buy it now. And I'm willing to incentivize you today to buy it early so you don't forget to buy it, because I know I can help you. So those are what your post mindset should be.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like the way you're saying is not like, and that's what words come in, because if you don't have the right words, people can feel really, that's like, this is so salesy. This is so pushy that I'm scared to invest. But, and I feel like this, I cannot say that word right. Scarcity.
Mm-hmm. You did it?
Yeah. First time. So I believe that it is, because, for example, for my program, I don't want to have more than 10 people. Not at this time, because my bandwidth right now with the other projects that I have, I know I can serve 10 people at a high level with the team that I have, with the resources that I have, with the time that I have. So when I say there's only 10 spots, it really mean it. It's not because we're just creating. Now, sometimes you see like posts like, oh, I am inviting 5 people. I'm giving away 5 girls, or 5 people, this course for free. And then they get invited to a Facebook group and it's a challenge. So you're not giving 5 people for free. It's actually a challenge. So you're not doing anything. So right there, you break the trust. When I see that, to me, I don't even, and I question the coaches that do that. And I say, where am I one of the 5 people? Who are the 5 people? Because, it's time for us to bring truth to the industry, and words can sell, but also can break trust.
My gosh, that is so powerful. Honestly, I know you and I have talked in the past about how we've had our trust broken a lot by people. And it's one thing to see something that's going well and that your program's powerful, so you're going to maybe imitate someone out there and boast and do a great post. But when you're on the borderline of being inauthentic, when it's almost a lie, people will figure that out. People aren't stupid. They're smart consumers out there. Now, we do want to believe in the person we're paying. So we sometimes create this like, okay, I believe them. But at the end of the day, once you've been tricked, you stop trusting everyone. So if there's one coach out there lying, selling things the wrong way, that now makes that person distrust everyone else. And so it's bad as a whole for the entire industry that there's a little bit too much of that quote unquote salesy speak that's actually not even officially true. And I never recommend that kind of speech. Transparency and authenticity creates long lasting relationships. And I have a small story about that I'll just share. Back when I was doing hair, I had a client say, "Hey, will you start cutting my husband's hair?" And I said, "Here's my price." And she goes, "Oh, well, where he goes, it's $5 cheaper. Will you match the price?" So I wrote her actually a nice email explaining that if I charge her husband $5 less, that makes me feel really bad for the other gentlemen that I cut hair that pay the full price. How could I justify that? And I said, then you might start thinking, well, what else is she charging other people? What if I'm still getting ripped off compared to what she charges other people? All of my authority goes away. All of my, everything, my ethics are gone. And then you don't trust that person. So if we're going to create friendships that last, we continue to support each other and build each other up. It has to be really transparent, in my opinion. And we can use that in our language, before ahead of time, like, say, hey, this is what I'm teaching. And we're not going to lie about it. This is what I want you to do. When you get into this group, you literally get this for free. I think sounds like it's kind of hard for people, but it's a no-brainer for me.
No, but this is, and that's what the power of words are, because you can attract the right people. And what is the word like when you don't attract, you detract? I want to say my Brazilian way. He's a,
What's in Brazilian? How do you say it?
well, it's the opposite. You attract and then detract. So it's not.
Well, yeah. Well, you push away, or
You push away. Yeah. So what you want, you want your copy to be so to the point where people are going to look and say, this is not for me. Right. And I feel that that's what the social media, the before the launch, before the event, because can you talk a little bit about the phases of the posts? Like, say, for example, for a summit or for a live launch, a 5-day challenge, which is something people do a lot, especially in this group. What do you see, like, what would be the sequence, like the before, during, and then the post event?
I love this question. I actually created a course exactly on this, on planning for a launch, because I think that's where people get lost. So bear with me while I explain this, because I see it on an actual grid, like a calendar. And for me, that's the most easy visual way for you and your entire team to see what's going on.
Okay.
So let's say we're doing Instagram or Facebook posts, and we have a calendar up for a month. Let's say it's for January. So we go through and we say, okay, we actually would have January and February, right? Because we'd be launching in March at this point if we started now. So when we go to create the content, we would go to the beginning of January and say, okay, let's mark out 2 to 3 weeks. And the only content there will be different pillars, but you have your own pillars. You know what your company teaches, what your brand teaches. So you want to have not only the pillars, do you teach, like for me, I teach launching or copywriting. So my pillars would be like what to say. Another pillar would be like something more emotional and personal about myself. Another pillar for me is like a story of a client so that they can understand like a tip through what I did for them. And then another is just general about how to launch, how to write. So those are like my content pillars for myself. Okay, so you have those for yourself. I would put them in different orders in that. So that would be the theme of that post. So the first 3 weeks, you're going to be asking people to download your freebie, but you're going to be using those content pillars. So I might say, like, my freebie right now is 30 social media posts prompts. So you know what to say for 30 days. So the first 3 weeks of a launch, I would be talking and I would say, okay, let's talk about what I teach. I would have a caption based on what I teach, how to do a launch, how to do copy. And then at the end, I would say, let me make it easier for you. Download my free social media prompts. So then the next day I would post, after I broke my back 3 years ago, I wrote a lot, I read a lot, and now I love to be on social media writing captions, something like that. And then at the end, I would say, download my free thing. So it would be really heavy on giving tips, giving value, telling stories, but for 3 weeks, getting that list built. That should be your number one thing. The next thing after that, you're going to be nurturing them. So the next 2 weeks, spend more time getting deeper into the nitty gritty of your program. Tell them, look at your program as your content pillars now and say, okay, step 1, module 1. Okay, let's talk about that. Module 2, and reveal pieces and parts of what you teach from your program that's coming up. So that way they can see what's going to be inside and they're not surprised. And for some people, that's maybe defining a word. I have a few clients that are in branding, but branding can go from making logos to completely identifying everything about who you are and what you do and what your programs are. So for some people, they need to identify in their social media content what branding means for their company and what they're actually teaching. So they don't attract someone by, hashtag branding who wants a new logo, but they attract someone hashtag branding who goes, yes, I need someone to define my business. So you really want to get into what you're going to be teaching and, kind of teasing the content. Then I would go into saying, hey, I have a program coming out. Who wants to be on the wait list? That's all pre-launch. Then when you get to launch week, that's when you're still giving that, I kind of go by that value, sell. I still go by that, but you can be a little more sell heavy, a little more often. You can probably even do value, sell. But in your posts, they would literally be Monday value, Tuesday value, Wednesday value, sell, Thursday sell. And you would continue like that during the launch. Basically, your call to action should always be clear. And your call to action during that time, during the launch, whether it's 5 days, 10 days, a week, whatever your cart is open for, whatever you're selling, that CTA is always going to say, use the link in bio to buy this, right? So we want to provide value, but remind them what we talked about. Remind them what you were talking about in your launches. And all those posts during should be more sell heavy. And when we say sell heavy, I'm just going to say, it doesn't mean it has to be salesy. Hey, for one time only, get this. Nobody likes that kind of feel, but sell heavy, I mean the CTA, the call to action, the thing that you're asking them to do at the end of reading whatever it is that you wrote should say, buy my course, buy my program, join me, and pay me one-on-one for my services. Then post, this is the part, and I'm sure you agree with me, Fernanda. People start to just get bored or stressed out or tired, and they feel like, oh, post, it's over. I don't need to post anything. And that's where they're wrong. After the launch is just as important as before the launch. You need to finish them off with, I just had a great launch. I just helped X amount of people join, and they're going to learn about this. And that's when you can get them onto a wait list. That's when you can get them ready and warmed up for the next cycle. And they're going to be watching you, waiting for 3 months from now, 4 months from now, for when you launch something similar again, because you are going to continue to nurture them afterwards. And, maybe your cart is closed, but if you have someone really interested, you may still let them in the program if they have enough time. So people say on that sales cycle of launches, or, when you're doing some kind of launch with at the end, there's another spike in sales, like right at the end. So don't give up at that end. Even though your cart may be closed, continue with a few more, maybe about a week's worth of posting to say what the reactions were and what happened, because people want to know.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Thank you so much for describing everything such in a nutshell, because that's so important. And I feel like with the launches, a lot of the times, even with the summits, I've seen my clients just go like, okay, the launch is over and we only sold this much and that's it. And there's so many opportunities in between launches, so many opportunities in between, summits, that people lose so much money. They leave money on a table by not nurturing, by not connecting. Just because somebody didn't show up for your launch, it doesn't mean that they were not interested. Just because they haven't, and another thing that I'm going to ask you next is about opening rates. But just because they're not opening the email doesn't mean they're not a warm or a hot client. Maybe like some people will not open emails right away, or maybe it's going to their spam folder. That's when you always need to find a way to connect with them. I go through my email list. I see who they are. I see if they are in my Facebook group. And if they are, I will send them a personal message and saying thank you, right? If they're not in my email list, if they are in my email list, but they're not anywhere, not following me or not connecting with me, then I can send them another email, and just send an email, especially for the ones that did not open 1 or 2 emails. So, and I feel like that's where copywriting comes in place, and it's so important, because what to say when they don't open your emails? What to say if they open but don't click? What to say if they open, click, and don't take action? Right? How do I know that this is not the right client? It may be just not the right time, but you need to nurture them. And that's why it's important between launches to always have that nurture sequence, because there's so much gold in between launches.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. So a lot of people feel pressure during the launch, and a lot of people don't like pressure. So they kind of wait out the launch. They say, you know what, I'm going to wait and see what else this person has, especially if you just did that due diligence of bringing in 1,000 people in a month onto your list. Those 1,000 people do actually, some of them will buy right away, but a lot of them need more time. And they might have to go through your second or third launch before they purchase. So that's kind of cool though, because that's like a snowball effect, right? So if you throw the snowball down the mountain and it's rolling and it gets bigger and bigger, that those people are going to get momentum. And the more they see you launch, the more they see you nurture them, the more they feel who you really are, if they are aligned with you, they're going to stick around, and then they will be one of your best clients ever because they waited to buy because it's based on who you are and what they've seen you do. They really want to buy, and they're going to be a wonderful client. So don't just say, well, you didn't buy the first time, you don't mean anything. They're actually some of your best clients, your best referrers, and they're going to do a lot. They're going to invest in you time and time again if they're investing all this time reading your emails or at least circling around. Now, one thing I will say about emails and, not getting people to open them, copywriting comes down even to the subject lines. And there are some tips and tricks in subject lines, and then also that preview line, that if you do your job right, sometimes they'll always open it. The same clients who are interested will always open. If you do it wrong, they read it and they think, I don't need to know what's in here, and they skip it. Even if you send it and resend it again to your unopened ones, it's a dud. So there's some testing that does need to go in with copywriting. You might not nail it the first time, even if you have great writing, but you have to be willing to test things out and send it and say it didn't work. Try the same email next time with a different subject and see how many open rates you get.
Yes. And why that's important to always keep track of your opening rates, because that's when you know which email is performing better, which day of the week. Because it might be that your subject line is good, but you're sending at 8:00 at night. And that's when, somebody that gets up at 5 a.m. might be already getting ready for bed. They're not going to read. So there's the time of the day that you send the email. There's also the subject line, like you're saying. In the preview line is what the first thing you read when you receive an email. And when you open an email, usually that line is not even on the email. It's just like the preview. Now, here's one thing that happened to me during this event. I'm all about telling the truth, being real, raw. I don't claim to be perfect. I claim to learn from everything that happens. And so one thing that happened is I changed email providers, and I put an image of the banner of this event. So when I sent out on the other email providers that I could, that I was able to write that line, they give you an option to write that line what the preview is going to be. This one, they didn't. So I assumed that they were going to send, the first line of my email. No, it sent something like Google Lapis, www.88 exclamation. And I was like, what is that? And then I saw that all of the emails came like that. And I said, that's the image. So then I tested. And then I removed the image, and then it showed the first line. Then I'm like, how do we fix that? Because that email provider doesn't have the choice for you to write that email. So then what I did is I wrote the first line and I made it white. So now it's transparent, but when you open, that's the first thing you're going to see.
Art.
So it's all the things that you learn along the way. And as you're saying, you test it, you try it, you test it, and you see what works, what doesn't work, what emails people are liking the most. Now, one thing that really, for me, I really get upset, it's when the subject line, it's so misleading. Like somebody said, I got divorced. And I was like, what? This couple got divorced? Oh my gosh. So I opened the email to read because it really sparked my curiosity, right? And I was like, I can't believe that. And then it's like, I got divorced from my bad habits. I got divorced from this. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Now, you know what I did? Unsubscribed. Because I just felt like I always opened her emails. But at that time, like, why do you need to trick me to open your emails? One thing is like using a real, that's for me. I'm her audience. And for me, it was not okay. Because that was the second time. The other one was kind of a soft. And I'm like, okay, I can almost see what she's trying to do with the subject line. But could have been, guess what I got divorced from? I would be like, what? She got divorced from what? Not from who? Or, you know what I mean? Then I would have opened. So curiosity, it's amazing. but also you need to be willing to pay the price if people don't like it.
Well, and that's okay, because now you're not her ideal client, so you can move on and she can move on, but you might have been. And so, again, it's all about truth telling, and you can test those things, but I'm sure that you're probably not the only one that, unsubscribed from that. And when she checks her stats, she probably saw that. But yeah, we test all those things and we see what works, but we try to do our best as well. So we don't want boring titles, but if you are running a summit, if you are running a 5-day launch, there's nothing wrong with your challenge saying, or your email saying in the subject, the name of your launch, day 1. That is really informative and helpful for someone. Mm-hmm. That's fine. It doesn't have to be provocative all of the time, but your nurture emails, you do want them to say something short, sweet, to the point, and to get someone's interest piqued.
Oh my gosh, yes, I love that. And there's so many things that I want to ask and, and talk about. And when it comes to email, like the unsubscribe button, that has to be in every single one of your emails. And that, right. You need to make sure that's there. But also in the copywriting, like I went to unsubscribe from somebody and they had this super cute page that it was so cute. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to stay. It was such a cute page. As there's like this beautiful background and there was like this cute little face with the emoji and the GIF. And I'm like, you know what? I had never gave it a chance to read the emails. And I do read emails. So I went back and I didn't unsubscribe. But, as you're saying, those words that she used sold me to go back to her email list.
Yep. I love that.
So, Charlese, thank you so much for sharing. And Charlese, when you joined us here, Charlese gave you a free gift, which is oh my gosh, there we go. The 5 welcome email sequence. And make sure you use that to start creating your email sequence for your events. And also she has an action step, and I'm going to let you explain what you want them to do.
What I would love to see you do is create some really intriguing subject lines for your launch or your pre-launch, things that are going to nurture your clients. So if you want to go in and you want to just comment some subject lines for me, I promise I will actually edit them for you, send back what I think would be the best. And can you do 5? Can you do 5 subject lines that you think would work for what you do? And I will go in and I will edit them and give you some advice and help you to write, to make better email open higher rates, because, the goal is to get 30% or above. And that really can happen if you have, first of all, the right subject line, the right timing down, but it all starts at the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Amazing.
So your action, give me 5 subject lines for your nurture emails. And we're talking again, just to reiterate, in that launch cycle, before you open the cart, before your summit, before your 5-day live launch, before your cart opens, you just got these people on your email list. Now you're warming them up. What are 5 subject lines that you're going to use when you write some content?
And your call to action. So
and what's your call to action?
One call to action. So, hey, this is your chance to get somebody looking at your content and supporting you. So don't miss that opportunity. And thank you so much, Charlese. I so appreciate everything you shared. And it's also always so nice to chat with you.
We could talk for hours, couldn't we?
We already did for 2 hours. Just before this.
With no wine.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us, and see you in the group.